We should be live. I'm just gonna take a second to share this out. All right. Welcome to ACAB Radio, everyone. We're your hosts, Kelly Special K Patterson and Jay Lyfer. Today is episode 50 of ACAB Radio. Pretty monumental there.
It's fancy right there.
Yeah. And for this 50th episode, we have a very special guest on the show today, Matt Agorist. What's going on, Matt?
Hey, what's happening, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We first met back in Houston for the United for Common Ground Summit. And I'd say that was a meeting that was long overdue, and we definitely need to have another one just because the censorship continues. It looks like Police the Police 2.0 was just taken down the other day. And thankfully you guys are at 3.0, really stepping up those numbers. But like I love the gumption and just the sheer willpower that your team has, and how you're not gonna let them stop you. You know, it's beautiful.
No, not at all, man. And I appreciate that. It's been an uphill battle, man, but we keep grinding away, and it's actually, I mean, we got back before this latest purge last week. Before they unpublished Police to Police 2.0, we had reached massive numbers. We were already surpassing numbers from when Police to Police was over almost 2 million fans back last year before they purged us. Mm-hmm. But like just the page, we had reached almost 400,000 fans in just a few months since they banned us the first time. So definitely there's a demand out there for people to see this information, and they can keep shutting us up, and we'll just keep making 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, and just keep doing it,
Right.
They can't stop us.
Most definitely, man. Yeah, I saw something Jason posted that on that last page, 2.0, Police to Police 2.0, I mean, you guys were reaching like 12 million, I think, something like that, something in the millions of people that week or that month or whatever. Like, so you guys were starting to get that reach back, and here they come again, It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as we get big, they come back and shut us down again. So.
Yeah. How does that affect traffic to the website? Do you notice like when the page
goes down? This time around, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
The website traffic hasn't taken that big of a hit, actually, because I guess after the original purge back in October, we took a massive hit. We
Right.
lost 6 million fans that were on our pages with 6 million followers that we could put links out to, and
Yeah.
that would drive a lot of traffic. But we lost all that, so we had to build it up in different ways, and so traffic kind of stays pretty decent on the website now. But yeah, I mean, we're just not reaching as many people. Yeah, and that 12 million number was likely for a week, So we were reaching upwards of 40, 50 million people a month again, and so that's dangerous apparently.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they definitely fear that. So we're just gonna cover a few of. Every week we take some of your guys' content and talk about it on our show. I mean, it's hard not to. Like I said, you guys are some of the best in the game, and it's hard for us to talk about police accountability and all the dirty shit they're out there doing without covering one of your articles. So I just took the stories that were on your website from this past week, and you wrote 4 out of 5 of them. So you should know what we're talking about here. The first one is out of Mesa, which they just can't seem to stay out of the headlines. Mesa police shoot and kill unarmed man as he had a seizure during a traffic stop. So, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, man. So it's we don't have any video or anything of that instance, but the his parents, the parents of that man are suing, Mesa. And if for those that don't know, I mean, whoever's listening to this probably does know, but Mesa is infamous for killer cops and brutal cops. They had Mesa was the place where Officer Philip Brailsford came from, who
Mm-hmm.
shot and killed on video an unarmed innocent father who was on his knees begging for his life. And not only was he acquitted, but he was actually given his job back
Right.
and allowed to retire so he could keep his back pay. So or so he could
Unbelievable.
keep his retirement. But yeah, so that's the type of department this is. And just last month, the Mesa police chief actually tried to institute some reform because brutality is it's like runaway excessive force and brutality constantly in this department. And so the police union came in and tried to and issued a vote of no confidence in him, saying that because he's trying to stop the brutality in their department, that he's not fit to be the police chief anymore. So yeah, so that's a little background on Mesa Police Department. So this young man, he was this is like a typical stop. Like they pulled him over for suspected DUI. He
Mm-hmm.
got kind of nervous and apparently tried to flee the scene, and he was unarmed, and the cops opened fire on him and killed him right there on the spot. And according to the police, they tried to run over the police officers, which is like I've never seen a case of a police officer being deliberately run over. And in the years that I've been doing this, I've never seen an officer being deliberately hit by. I mean, that might be just my ignorance, but we've never seen one.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen them being hit on the side of the road, writing tickets or something on accident, which is
Right.
terrible. But never have we seen a guy like a cop pulling over somebody and then getting run over by the person they pulled over or by the person they stopped. Never
Mm-hmm.
seen that. Anyway, but the police continue to claim that this is a threat, so they have to open fire on somebody for driving away. And so even if this guy, Anthony Lopez, was attempting to drive away, opening fire on him is completely, it's out of protocol. It's against department norms and everything. But they always claim that, that their lives were in danger because the guy started, driving at them or whatever. But it goes further, like the lawsuit goes further, and the fact that he might not have even been trying to get away, and the fact that he was suspected of DUI was maybe because he was having a seizure at the time, and when police pulled him over, his seizure amplified, and and so like these cops mistook a seizure for trying to escape and shot and killed him.
Yeah.
So it's tragic on all levels. I mean, this guy didn't deserve to die. He even if he was trying to run away, it wasn't. You don't deserve to die for that.
Yeah. Let's assume the worst
Yeah.
and say he was trying to flee. Um, I know. Unfortunately, my parents are the type that always first defend the officers, and I have to remind them of my past and things that I've done. And I remember my first DUI. I wasn't even. I think I was 18. I wasn't even 21 yet. And we're out at the lake drinking, whatnot, and I got sick, so I'm in my car. It's hot out. I turn on the car just to have the air on, and I passed out. And one of the rangers come up, and I fucking freaked out. Like, he woke me up, and I freaked out and turned on the car and went to move. And then he placed himself in front of my vehicle so that I wouldn't keep driving, So I stopped, and then he arrested me for DUI. But, like, it seems like a similar situation where, like, at least when I talk to my parents about these types of stories, is like I explain to them, like, this could have been me. Like, I could have been killed for this same exact thing. And oftentimes, I mean, of the 5 or 6 times I can remember that I personally could have been killed because I've seen people killed for the same exact thing or less, had I been a person of color, who knows if I'd still be here, So I think it is important to
Yeah.
cover these types of stories.
Well, that's one of the things. If you assume worst case scenario, then the penalty for drunk driving isn't the death penalty.
Right.
And this not once again, this is not like an isolated case where it would be an issue of the police. assaulting somebody or worse because they had a medical issue. Because there was a video from Maryland about 2 years ago where they tasered a guy who was in the middle of a seizure because he wouldn't respond to them. And then there was a pretty well-known case here in Henderson, just outside of Las Vegas, where they beat a guy who was having a he was in diabetic shock, and they thought he was driving drunk. And then they pulled him out of the car and beat him and kicked him in the head. And came down to the district attorney, Steve Wolfson. First, he said that he wasn't going to reopen the case because the community wasn't concerned about it. And then when everybody said, well, fuck yeah, we are, then he had to. Then he came up and said, we're not going to prosecute the cops because they teach you in the academy to kick people in the head.
Wow.
So it's part of their training to kick people that are, having a diabetic episode in the head, apparently.
Yeah, if you go search on the website, like cops mistake seizure or medical emergency, there's countless stories of that throughout the whole website that we've seen, countless innocent epileptic people be mistaken for criminals and get, brutally beaten on the side of the road or shot or, you name it. It's all kinds of terrible things.
So that's one of the things I wanted to ask you, Matt, is, I mean, you're in the same line of work we are. You've been doing it longer than I have, but just in this short span of this show, and Kelly, you've been doing it for years with Nevada Cop Block. I mean, we are actively reading news headlines constantly and constantly covering these just horrific stories from, cops running prostitution rings or pedophile pigs or, just murdering unarmed people. Like, it's just a barrage of story after story of cops in the headlines. And so I wanted to ask you, like, how do you, balance that and keep a level head in life when you're just, constantly viewing this like toxic material, like what do you do to kind of ground yourself and step away from it all?
Oh, I have scheduled days where I just don't even look at the computer, man. I have to. It gets there's so much negativity, and we also like to try to balance it out. We also try to look for like good stories of police officers doing good, like calling out some corruption in their department or saving lives, or something like that, and that kind of like helps to dispel the cop apologists and stuff. Like, oh, you just bash on cop. I'm like, really? Look at this one. Here's a guy that we praise for disarming a guy instead of killing him.
Yeah.
And we got like our fans that and like the people that like our readers on the website, man. There's many like we do get our fair share of hate mail, but these a lot of these people just they say like the most nicest things and thank us for like what we're doing and say how we opened their eyes and taught them something that they didn't know about their rights or anything like that. So that kind of helps balance out all the negativity too, man. But yeah, it definitely takes a toll on you. I've been doing this now for 7 years, and like with the police accountability thing, and there's all these cops do these most horrible things, dude. Especially the pedophile and child trafficking ones, man. It's just it's heartbreaking and it just seems like it's on a massive scale, man. It's you can go find a cop convicted of sexual assault like once a day easily, and we get the whole bad apple. I'm like, if it's a bad apple, it would stop happening eventually, but it fucking happens constantly. It's the whole bad apple theory is just it's a bullshit theory that's not true. It doesn't hold up.
Right. And then that's not even the whole saying, it's the bad apple spoils the bunch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so whenever these other guys are letting their fellow officers get away with beating their wives or raping women on the roadside, they're all bad too. So they're all spoiled too, just like that. So
yeah,
and you hear about it, like you get these guys that get caught, and then they come to find out, like once they finally are arrested, like all these other people come forward and they have been filing complaints, and the department's just been ignoring it.
Right.
And I mean that happens all the time. And it's because these cops are being they're covering for one another.
And they're investigating themselves, right? So,
And
Right.
often they're
Yeah.
being rewarded for their actions rather than punished.
yeah, just like Brailsford, like you were saying. Yeah, I mean, when they continue to reward with whether it's paid vacations or promotions to gypsy cops, like here in Henderson, our police chief killed an unarmed veteran back in Texas, and he just transferred to our department, and now he's the police chief. So when you reward this
Hmm.
negative behavior, you wonder why it's getting worse and worse, and it's actually starting to draw these types of personalities to the profession.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. They had a cop that we reported on in 2014 or 15 in Louisiana who put a Facebook post out saying he would drown his daughter if she dated a black man, and
Right.
he was the news media said, or like the local media said that he was fired at the time, but come to find out that they just said they were going to fire him. He didn't fire. No one fired him, and now he's actually the chief.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's just
it's
Well,
crazy.
it's crazy, man.
and that's also another trend, not that specifically, but saying that they fired the cop but allowing him to resign or even put in for disability like Brailsford and like the cop we had here,
Yeah.
Jesus Arevalo, who murdered Stanley Gibson.
Hmm.
And was, they still say when they mention him in the paper or something that he got fired, but meanwhile he was allowed to stay on the department long enough to put in for disability.
Yeah. Even the officer that killed Tashi Brown out here, Officer LaPera, I mean, they tried to, in the media, paint it as if, there is some accountability. See, the officer was fired. But in the grand jury, it came out that he was allowed to resign. So he got all of his unpaid time off. He got paid for all that, pension, all that. And then who knows if since the charges were dismissed in the grand jury, who knows if he'll turn up at another department. It's crazy.
Oh, it's almost a guarantee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've seen enough of these stories. Um,
Yeah.
And then there's no shortage of stories like this. Heartbreaking video shows cops kill dog for barking at them, putting dozens of lives at risk. So this was out of Detroit. I forget the details on why these cops were even following this guy who's walking his dog, but I don't have the video queued up, but if you guys want to check it out, head over to thefreethoughtproject.com and read this article. It's crazy. Watch the video. They're trying to tase the guy, and the taser's ineffective, but he's just walking away. And then the taser makes a weird noise. I'm sure everybody's heard a taser. So the dog starts barking, right? And they took the barking, like it's not like he ran at the officers or anything. He just barked, and they unloaded. I don't know if more than one officer, but I saw at least one officer shoot multiple times and killed the dog. And it's just so sad watching dogs die of bullet wounds, like the sounds they make and the movements. It's horrifying, man. It's hard to watch.
Yeah, and not to mention that the 7 rounds that he shot weren't in a single direction. They were like in a semicircle as the dog ran away. He
Yeah.
chased it down and went boom, boom, boom. And
Yeah.
there's this is a crowded neighborhood with kids playing outside, and he endangered the lives of the entire everybody in the area right there. He could have easily shot a
Absolutely.
kid.
Yeah.
And as we've reported on that plenty of times too, where cops go to shoot a dog and they actually shoot and kill innocent people.
Oh yeah.
I actually mentioned that in that story. Just earlier this month, officer in Georgia who was they raided an innocent family's house because a suspect that they had chased into the area they thought was in the house or whatever, and so they raided this house, and it's an innocent family, and they hold all these kids at gunpoint, and their non-aggressive dog is just in the room, and the cop goes to shoot it, and he misses the dog, and he shoots a 10-year-old
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah.
And this wasn't a ricochet. This was like a bullet wound. Like it shot him in the knee and shattered his kneecap, and he's
Okay.
permanently disabled now. And the court just granted that cop qualified immunity, saying that the family can't
Yeah.
sue him because he did this in the lawful duty of his job, which is just, dude, if the duty of your job calls for shooting non-aggressive dogs and hitting 10-year-old boys, and that makes you not liable for something, you might need to rethink what you do for a living.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just insane. I thought you were talking about a different case, but this was one where it was the same exact situation in the living room. They released the body cam footage not too long ago,
Oh,
but
the
the
little
kid,
girl.
yeah, got shot in the head.
And
But like,
Yeah.
luckily, it must have just like grazed it because she was still conscious. She ran out of the house screaming and just fucking rough, dude.
well, and then that's another one of the
Yeah.
things. There's so many stories and they're so like widespread that you could be talking about one story and somebody thinks you're talking about a different one.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's that other girl, not a girl, she was a mother, and the cop was there over a domestic dispute, and the dog came out barking, and he went to shoot the dog and
when it was
shot the
snowing,
woman in the chest and killed her.
yeah, it was
And
snowing somewhere cold. I
yeah, and they
forget where it
doctored
was.
the video, and because it never showed the dog actually biting the officer, and it was that was a tragic story, man. They're suing them. That's been a case ongoing for like 4 years
Do
now.
you remember her name, Kelly?
I don't remember her
Stacy something,
name.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was in. I always confuse Idaho and Iowa, but it was one of those two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. So that segues into cops out here just killed. This is from the 27th, so just a couple days ago, cops killed a dog out here. And they mix it into. I'm gonna read this here. It's on their like breaking news blog. It says, "Police are on the scene of a fatal crash in the so-and-so block. Additionally, a dog has been shot by a police officer at that location. Police say that a pit bull charged an officer who had approached a house in the neighborhood to talk to the residents. The officer on the scene attempted to catch the dog first, but were unable to stop it." And then it says, "Update. Police say the fatal crash appears to have been an intentional crash. The driver of the vehicle has died. The pit bull that was shot by police is also dead." Like, it's just crazy how they just like throw it in there, like little one, like, oh, by the way, the dog died too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just fucking crazy, man.
Yeah, I'd love to see this video to see whether the dog's actually, coming at them and how hard they tried to catch it.
Well, I mean, if they're there for a crash, like, what are they? Oh, we were out there interviewing witnesses of the crash. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, even approaching people's dogs, you know?
Well, and that's the thing is, like, why not get, animal control out there or there's other things you could do to get the dog out of the way. If you have to get to the person in the crash, if it's like that, that vital that you get to him at the time, there's other things you could do.
Yeah, we should FOIA request the body cam footage for that. Because they're not going to release it. They only release the footage if they shoot a person, so we got to try to get our hands on that.
Yeah, you guys got some crazy cops in Las Vegas, man.
Yeah, you've covered your fair share of stories out of Vegas for sure.
There was that we just covered a recent, not a recent video, but it was just recently released after a lawsuit of these cops beating up this guy that was selling water on the one of the bridges over the strip, man. Yeah. Fucking just ridiculous, dude. How do you think that like can you go home at night and be like, yeah, I protected the town from this guy selling water to willing customers because he didn't pay us first? Right. Can you really like live with yourself like that? I mean, what, and they were gonna go as far as to kill this guy. They had their hands around his neck. They were choking the air out of him. He was screaming in fear because he never gotten in trouble or anything before.
Yeah.
And yeah. They kidnapped him and threw him in a cage after they beat and choked him because he was selling bottles of water.
Yeah. Well, and the thing on that video is you can pretty clearly see that he's not resisting. And at that point,
they kept saying, "Stop resisting, stop resisting."
Yeah, but they're also
people witnessing the video.
They're also just holding.
One of them was like, "The only criminals here are you."
Yeah. But the other thing is they're maintaining that chokehold until he's unconscious, even though he's got his arms out. He's not trying to prevent them from doing anything.
Yeah, here I got the video. Let me play it real quick. It's only like a minute long.
So it's like they're just like that's their wet dream is they get to choke somebody out. So
Back up.
go.
Resisting won't make you be resisting. We're watching you.
Leave the kid alone. Come through, guys.
Well, and the other thing, you know, when you watch that, you immediately think of Eric Garner, not just from the chokehold, but also the other cop is standing there holding his arms, you know, which is
We got
basically
it on
what-
tape. Don't worry.
Yeah, man, for sure. Yeah, there's so many chokehold. There before Eric Garner, there was a guy in Ohio who wasn't even selling loose cigarettes. He had just been walking out of the movie theater with his family, and some Oklahoma cops they like 8 of them got on top of him and choked this guy out, and he died right there in the parking lot.
Yeah, and
it was I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, I was just gonna say that, you know, people outside of Las Vegas might not be too aware of the issue there, but it's pretty well known in Vegas that people would go out and they would sell water on the Strip, and a lot of them were formerly homeless people. And what would happen is they figured out they could go to a grocery store and buy, you know, a case of water and then sell it for $1 a piece and make enough that they could actually afford a house or an apartment. And the casinos got the police cracking down on that because the casinos were selling the water for like $4 or $5.
Right. So it all came down to the casinos didn't want competition.
Yeah. And they actually had undercover police officers going up and down the Strip to catch people selling water.
Yeah, Kelly actually went to, what was that, like a city council meeting or something, commissioners meeting or something, when they were trying to pass a tax for more cops out here. He went out there and it's a great video. I should have queued it up, but he was saying how, you've got all this money for undercover cops to patrol the Strip to crack down on people selling bottled water, but you need to institute another tax for more officers. Like, it's just crazy, man. That that's where not only that they're willing to extort more tax money to hire more of these thugs, but that they're even out there, enforcing something like this. And it's, even if you have a business license and you do it, so you say you've paid them permission to do this, they'll still, where this guy was at, it's one of the bridges that goes over Las Vegas Boulevard. And if you're on those bridges with a cooler like he was, they'll say you're blocking the sidewalk, so you'll get an obstructing the sidewalk charge, even if you have a license.
Well, the other thing about that is, the justification they use for that is you don't have a business license, but they actually won't sell you a business license for that, because people that were doing that, once they started cracking down on them, they offered to go out and buy a license just to get them off their back, and they wouldn't sell them one. They don't have a category for that. So they put them in an impossible situation. They demand them to have a business license, but then they won't sell them one.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And you shouldn't have to have any kind of license to sell bottled water. It's not like food or anything where you have to, prevent, bacteria or disease or anything in the food or something like that. This is bottled water, dude. It's bottled water. I mean, it's just crazy that's a crime in the land of the free.
Yeah, and you have tourists out there in the heat, 110 degrees or higher, in certain months, and they're willing customers, but because they're underselling the casinos and you're not going into the casino to buy the stuff and putting your money in the machines, they have the cops acting as their private security, basically.
Yep. Right. And it's not just Las Vegas either. This happens in cities all over the country. Down here in New Orleans, they do the same thing. Guys, young. It's like kids. It's like 16, 17-year-old kids go buy a case of water and then sell it to people. Because in New Orleans in the summertime, it's like 150 degrees on those streets, man. You want that water, dude. And so when you're walking down the street, you like these guys are providing a very beneficial service to everybody out there who wants to buy a bottle of water for $1 and doesn't have to go inside a bar or a casino and pay for $5 for a bottle of water.
Yeah.
And they have to hide and do it in like dark alleys and shit because the cops will arrest them or ticket them for selling water to people. It's a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame.
Or choke them.
Yeah. I've never seen that in New Orleans where they get choked for selling bottled water, but yeah, Vegas, like I said, you guys got some pretty insane cops down there.
Yeah, they're definitely a special breed out here. But this reminds me of kids getting tickets for cutting lawns or raking leaves. Like I used to do when I was little. We'd go around the neighborhood and mow lawns, rake leaves, setting up a lemonade stand. And there's just no limit to the harassment that these officers will do. Just to generate revenue. So the next story here that you wrote that we got to cover is cop sentenced to prison after video showed him beating an elderly nurse. So this was a Miami officer who was convicted and sentenced, which you would think, wow, like an officer actually got convicted and sentenced. But then you look at the sentence and it's 45 days. Like he beat the shit out of an elderly nurse and they gave him 45 fucking days. It's just unbelievable, man. But yeah, what's the details of this case?
Well, he was acting like a mafia boss, This guy, like his niece was like mentally ill, and the hospital discharged her, and so they, then because she had gotten the help she needed according to the doctors at the hospital, but the girl's father just knew that she needed to be still in the hospital. So instead of going through any kind of like legitimate means of trying to get his daughter back in the hospital, he called his brother cop, and brother cop goes to the hospital and starts like, you want me for to break his legs?
Right.
He goes up to one of the nurses that like helped to discharge the daughter, and he just attacks him from behind and throws him down. And the nurse happened to be a 66-year-old man, that had like that hadn't done anything to the cop at all. And the cop lied and said that the nurse, attacked him and all this, and he was resisting arrest. And but the surveillance video, luckily that there was surveillance video in the hospital, it showed that the cop was completely in the wrong, and he got charged with a whole slew of crimes too. And he only got 45 days, which is just insanity. Like if you go into a hospital and you attack and beat up an elderly nurse, dude, you're gonna be on fucking Dateline.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They're gonna be like, man, goes into a hospital and beats up elderly nurse, and like this is gonna be that's gonna be on USA Today.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're gonna go to jail for fucking 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Dude did 45 days in jail, and he got like it was like beating a elderly person, like he got like a list of crimes. It sounded like something you should go to jail for a long ass time, but. No, he got he got special privilege, 45 days in jail. That's it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, you have laws where they specifically have higher punishments for the fact that somebody's elderly or disabled or something of that nature. And for him to get 45 days is just insane. I mean, it's not even, I don't even know how they could like legally justify that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And false imprisonment, because he arrested the guy too after he beat his ass. He arrested him to try to justify it.
Man.
Well, and that's the other thing is, the cops beat you up and then they charge you with a crime. And it's usually a felony for assaulting a police officer too. So like basically they beat you up and then they ruin your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. The last story here was Jack Burns wrote this one. California Highway Patrol Assistant Police Chief gets no jail time for helping his convicted rapist son flee to Mexico. So Jack Burns, I hadn't seen many articles from him until recently. I've been seeing some articles going, so it looks like you guys are able to get a little help, bring on some more writers. Because I remember you guys had quite a few writers back when, you had your big page and everything. And unfortunately, after the purge, I'm sure you guys had to, make some cuts and whatnot. But at least you're not trying to bang out all these articles by yourself, man. Looks like you got some help over there.
Yeah, it's nice to have Jack back, man. And for a while there, before they just nuked PTP2, we thought that... we thought we were going to be able to bring in a bunch more writers, but now we're back on, skin and bones again. But, yeah, man, that story is really fucked up. This guy's son was robbed, like at a gunpoint, and then violently raped this maid next door to their house, and that was like all, they had like overwhelming evidence against him and everything, and so instead of letting his son go to jail, I mean, I don't know, if my son did that, it'd be a tough call. I would help my son out of a lot of binds, but if he raped somebody, I don't know if I could do that.
Right.
But like but yeah, so there was like overwhelming evidence that he violently raped this maid from next door, and they like formulated a plan, lied to police, and said he was kidnapped, and got him, dyed his hair, and smuggled him into Mexico. He was caught, shortly after, but still, the former chief of the California Highway Patrol, like
Right.
this is like not some low level cop.
Yeah.
And his wife and their daughter all helped to get their son out of the country, who was convicted of this brutal rape and armed robbery, and got like decades behind bars. I'm not exactly sure exactly, but I know it was a lot, where we've seen people that, rape 10-year-old girls and don't go to jail but for like 3 years or fucking probation.
Right.
This guy's crimes were so bad that he actually was sentenced to decades behind bars. And yeah, and so the whole family, like the none of them got in trouble. None of them have to see the inside of a jail. None of them have to go to jail at all for harboring a fugitive and lying to police and obstructing justice and all this to
which is
help
a felony,
their convicted
right?
rapist son escape.
I mean,
Which what?
It's a felony, right? I mean, if you help
Yeah.
of
It's multiple
person of
felonies that they
interest.
committed. Yeah.
Yeah, and he
And-
gets no jail time for that. This officer here. That's crazy.
It really is. But I mean, that's par for the course. We've seen we've seen cases where cops have brutally raped children, and they get no jail time. So this guy just helped the rapist, so it's kind of expected there to get that.
Right.
But yeah, there's lots of different cases where cops convicted of really harsh, disturbing, brutal crimes, and a lot of them against children, and none of them suffer any consequences.
Yeah,
But
if anything,
at the same time, you
probation,
see
yeah.
somebody caught for some weed and they're thrown in jail for 25 years.
Yeah. And then now, it's come out that a lot of these officers or ex-officers that spent their whole careers locking up people for weed are now like applying for and getting licenses to sell weed at dispensaries and shit. It's like, man, talk about hypocritical, It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Or I mean, maybe it's legitimate changing too. I mean, I like people. I see how people want to call them out for that. Like, hey, you're a hypocrite. You used to lock people up for that, but they stopped locking people up for it. You know what I'm saying? So like that's changing right there. Is stopping doing it. So that's the first part. That's the first thing you got to do if you want to change yourself is stop fucking kidnapping and caging people for having a plant.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
at least they're stopping doing that, and by them going into there, that's like that's got to be humbling. It's got to be, you got to swallow your pride when you do that, when you do something like that. To go back in from arresting people for it to actually selling it or protecting the sales lines or something like that.
I mean, it's a step in the right direction, I guess. But I mean, was it from a philosophical point of view? You know what I mean, or was it more of like a profit motive?
Well, when you look at the protectionism and the collaboration between the police at the time that it is illegal, it's really not that much of a step for them to start selling it.
Yeah,
honestly.
if they weren't already selling the stashes that they were.
I mean, it's good they're
taking from
not
people.
also setting people up and arresting them for it, but they were already selling it before they started. Now they're just being upfront about it.
Probably, right.
Yeah. Cops get caught all the time selling drugs that they take from drug dealers, and keeping the cash, and yeah, this is a common thing.
Yeah, taking stuff.
I mean,
out
now
of
they were like, it happens so often that they made a law that's what they made civil asset forfeiture for, Like, man, we keep getting in trouble for stealing all this shit and keeping it for ourselves. Let's pass a law that makes it legal for us to steal all this shit and keep it for ourselves. And then we don't even have to convict them of a crime. We could just steal their shit, and then it's their job to try to come back and get it. And it'll be damn near impossible for them to get it back from us.
Yeah, it's dirty.
Yeah.
I saw somewhere, I don't know if it was an appeals court or like a state Supreme Court or what. had ruled against civil asset forfeiture not too long ago. I'd have to look for that article. Maybe I can share it in the comments after the show. But yeah, it made it seem like we're heading away from that. I'm hoping that becomes a thing of the past. Because it's just legalized robbery. Turning them into real road pirates, not just like extortion through fines, but like actual robbery. Like, oh, you don't have proof of this, $500 in your pocket. Like, I'll let you go, but I got to take that money. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's shameful. You got to be a bad person to be able to do that, man.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a lot of cops out there that are working to end civil asset forfeiture. We were working with one of these sheriffs in I think it was Oklahoma again to try to that he was actively trying to end civil asset forfeiture because he said it corrupted the departments, and I mean it does. You give somebody the incentive, you make incentivize stealing people's shit, then that's what they're gonna do, dude. It's free stuff. They're gonna steal people's shit.
Mm-hmm. Especially if the department needs
you know,
funding or whatever, and then they just, okay, well, we'll just take it from people.
Yeah. And so, since 2014 and 15, there's been a massive shift in this, and so it's not as widely accepted as it once was, and so civil asset forfeiture is kind of being fought against by all levels of not just activists now, but state officials and everything else too. So yeah, it is moving in the right direction, I think.
Cool, man. Miguel Valdez, thanks for watching, Miguel. He said a cop just died of fentanyl overdose that he got from evidence. I think I know the story you're talking about. I want to say it was New Jersey or something, and he was like in uniform in the patrol car and was found overdose. I don't know if that's the same case, but like we said, there's so many stories that are so similar that it's hard to tell the difference, but I think that's the one you're talking about. Yeah, crazy. If anybody has any questions for Matt or just any comments in general, if you're watching on one of the pages that this was cross-posted to, click the original live stream for ACAB Radio. Ask a question or a comment. We'll try to address it live on air. That's it from the Free Thought Project. There are a few articles that we shared. The show's normally an hour long. We got about 20 minutes left, so there's a couple other stories we can talk about here. Kelly shared this one onto Nevada Cop Block's Facebook page. Hollywood detectives review teens police brutality claim. So what's going on with this here, Kelly?
Review should be in those air quotes. Well, that's just a case where there were some kids doing wheelies on their bikes on the street, and then the cops came by to stop them. And it even says in the article, they ran from the cops, but the reason they ran from the cops is because they were afraid. And then the cops, justified that fear by beating this kid and tasering him while he was handcuffed. And and then they say they're reviewing the part about beating him, but they've already cleared him on the tasing, and they've already said that's part of their company or their department policy is they're allowed to tase people.
Crazy. Well, Matt, I want to thank you for coming on, man. Again, you guys do great work at the Free Thought Project. Keep it up. Don't let the censorship, get you down. You guys are gonna keep coming back harder and harder. I know how you guys roll. So, thanks again for coming on. And we got to do it again sometime. I know you're in a rush. You got, you're a family man too, just like me. So I'm gonna let you get to it, brother.
Joey, thank you, man. It was a pleasure meeting you in Texas, by the way, man. And I'm definitely down to do that again and maybe come up with some new plans, dude. We came up with some great ideas there, and hopefully, we can get them better implemented and everything. And I loved it, dude. It was good meeting you there. I'm glad we got to reconnect on here, dude.
Definitely. All right, brother. You have a good one.
You too, man. Thanks for having me on. Bye, y'all.
All right. Thank you. Later. Let me end this real quick. There we go. Alrighty. Cool, man. Matt Agorist. So he's an anarchist as well. Voluntarist. So I don't know. Maybe he can make it out to Anarcho Vegas next year or something. or we'll have another independent media summit hopefully here shortly. But yeah, definitely cool that he could come on. So a couple more stories we got here, Kelly, before we wrap things up. The next one was also shared on, this was on our page, ACAB Radio. So
yeah. This is an older story, actually. I think this is about 3 years old. But it's a retired police officer who's black, and he's his main statement is that 15% of the people will be good regardless. 15% of the police officers are corrupt regardless, and the other 70% just kind of go with the flow.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah.
Sorry. I didn't mean to click that.
I guess we're doing it live. But yeah, and he was with the Baltimore Police Department, which is, notoriously corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
They've spent the past year, prosecuting corrupt police officers, and they still haven't got to them all.
Right.
They're the ones that filmed themselves planting drugs in 2 separate incidents.
Yeah.
Actually 3. There's actually up to 3 now.
That whole gun task force team that got caught planting guns, selling guns,
stealing people from people, protecting drug dealers.
Just straight mafia type shit.
Yep.
Yeah, Baltimore's all bad, man.
Yeah.
I hope that the people can come together and affect some change there. I really feel for them, because I feel like Vegas isn't quite there yet, and I'm hoping we never get that bad. You know what I mean? Like, there are a handful of departments that are worse than Metro. Like, I know that a lot of people, activists in the community that we talk to, like, we really at times feel like Metro is the fucking worst. But I mean, shit like that, I can't even imagine. There is some shady stuff that has gone on here in Vegas, just since I've been paying attention. But even back in the mafia days, it was way worse. But I don't know. I just hope we never get there, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, they're working. They're trying.
Yeah. Yeah. Next story here. Dallas police officer arrested on family violence charge. Yeah, this was a brutal case. Let me pull up the details here. This was, I believe it was DPD officer. Beat his wife, and he actually pulled a gun on her and put the gun to her head, if I remember correctly.
And part of the reason that they gloss over these issues is because if you're convicted for domestic violence, you're not allowed to carry a gun, so that you can't be a cop.
Mm-hmm.
So they use that, as part of their sympathy is, if we convict him, he won't be allowed to be a cop anymore. And, that's probably the right thing.
Right.
I mean, I don't even say probably. That's the right thing. And,
yeah, look right here. Pushed her to the floor, sat on top of her, and put the gun to her head and yelled at her.
Yeah. And so, that's that statistic that police are twice as likely to be charged with domestic battery or to be, arrested for it. Because a lot of times they don't even get charged, or they get some kind of plea deal. But so it's 40% of the police are domestic abusers, and that's the documented cases. That doesn't include the ones where their buddies bully the victim out of testifying, or they just gloss it over and let it go. So it's probably way higher than that.
I mean, imagine being a woman in that type of situation, and it's like,
so who are you gonna
go?
Yeah, who are you gonna go complain to? The guy's coworkers?
Yeah, fucking Johnny's buddy who just came over for drinks the previous weekend. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna go tell him about it? No. And then we've seen coordinated efforts within departments to intimidate people from coming forward for various things. So I'd imagine that happens with domestic abuse cases as well. But I remember a statistic. It was something like 2 out of every 5 on average. 2 out of 5 officers are domestic abusers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's 40%. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that must have been.
That's the official number.
Yeah, but it's got to be higher. Video shows what being a realtor while black looks like in a police state. Well, they're black. They got to be robbing the house, right?
Yeah.
Fucking A. Here's some good news. This was just a beautiful action. People in the community, and this was Tennessee, I believe, like just a small town. Let me play this real quick.
¡Vamos! Está saliendo el niño. Está saliendo el niño en este momento. Está saliendo también el señor. Y bueno, ya están a salvo. Están aplaudiendo porque...
It was just people stopping ICE from arresting this dad and son, because they had like knocked on the van door and tried to get the father to come out, like held a warrant up saying, you know, you got to come with us. But the thing is with those warrants is they don't allow ICE agents to go into your vehicle, go into your home. They're not signed by a judge. So it's pretty much bullshit. So the community had found out about this taking place, and they banded together and were able to form a, you know, wall, a human chain, to stop the ICE agents from being able to arrest him so he could get into his home. So just for anybody that may be watching this who didn't know that, tell your friends that may be undocumented that they don't have to get out of the car. You know, make sure that they know their rights. Yeah. There are resources out there.
That's one of the things. It's important to know your rights, but also this is an example of what it means to have a strong community and people who are willing to, you know, protect their community. Because the cops might, you know, if there's one person, they might just arrest you also. But if there's 20, 30 people there they got to deal with, they might just cut their losses and leave.
Right.
Yeah.
So now this is the point in the show where all the viewers, where I shared this into like constitutional groups, like all the right wingers are going to be like, wow, well, they're fucking illegals.
Yeah.
Get them out of here.
Yeah, because you should be punished for going and looking for a job.
Because the Constitution doesn't apply to everyone. I mean, it didn't say, you know, we're all created equal. It didn't. Like, nowhere in the Constitution does it say that these rights are only for Americans.
And all that capitalist shit that you're talking about, you know, competing for this and that. Well, how about competing with them, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, especially if you're a capitalist, you should be all for increasing the workforce and, you know. Anyways. I think there were a couple other. So that was the good news for me and Kelly. I don't know about some of you right-wingers who may be watching. That might be like, these fuckers. Police dog killed during mix-up while pursuing suspect.
Yeah.
Well, what? The headlines are just so glossed over. It was all just a little mix-up. No, it wasn't a mix-up. The cop fucking shot his own canine.
Yep.
It was all just a little mix-up.
Well, that's one thing, and there's a few videos of that where sometimes the canines actually get a conscience and they bite the police officers.
Yeah,
so
that's
what
what happened.
Yeah, I don't think this dog actually bit one of them, but he was like, I think he was kind of like,
he like got out of
at him or like nipping at him or something, you know. But
I don't remember if he actually bit him, but yeah, he like got out of the vehicle, jumped out of the window, and started chasing down his handler, the officer. So the officer shot and killed him, unfortunately. But that's what happens. Like, a lot of the time, these handlers are abusive. You know, if they don't get the type of response. We've seen numerous videos of them, like, shaking the dogs because the dogs won't give a positive, hit so that they can search a vehicle, and they'll get pissed and, like, slap the dog around. So these dogs are abused more often than not, and they turn on their owners like this. So, yeah, cop ended up killing him. So that's 2 stories in a week. No, 3 that we covered on this show alone of cops killing dogs. It's something like 3 a day.
I think that was the number, 3 a day.
Or is it more than that? I don't know. Because it was in the thousands a year, dogs that get killed by police.
And that's if you go and research it, you know, not all of them get covered.
Right.
I mean, you hear enough stories about police killing animals, which is the sign of a psychotic person anyway. That's one of the recognize signs is that they abuse animals.
Mm-hmm.
And cops just seem like they're looking for any opportunity to kill a dog or anything else. They kill cats and they fucking kill hamsters. They kill everything.
Anything that moves.
Right.
So here's Blue ISIS right here. From America's Police Problem. They do great work. Go back and check out one of our old episodes. I forget which one it was, but we had Nathan Dimoff on the show. It was a good episode. Queens man claims undercover cop hit him with car and beat him up. So this dude was on I think it was an electric scooter or maybe like a moped type of deal. It was smashing on the sidewalk, and the undercover cops trying to pull him over. He doesn't even know they're cops at this point, and fucking hit him with the car, and he keeps going, and then they ended up taking him off the car and just beat the shit out of him, man.
Because as far as he knew, there was just a crazy person trying to attack him with their car. Which something that I forgot actually was that story with the kids doing the wheelies. When they caught the kid, they hit him with the car. They hit his bike with the car to stop him. So because somebody was doing a wheelie, they were willing basically to kill him because you can die from falling off a bike.
Wheelies are unsafe, so we're going to hit
Especially
you with our car to get
Yeah.
you to stop doing unsafe things.
Yeah.
We'll keep you safe. Crazy. I think that might wrap it up here. Hold on. Oh, boy 16 shot in the face by police during protest loses both eyes. So, I believe this was in Venezuela. Let me make sure. I think this was the Venezuela story. But yeah, we're against police brutality no matter what country it happens in. Yeah, protest in Venezuela. So, I'm in favor of, not the government in Venezuela, especially when they're doing shit like this, but just in solidarity with the workers and the movement that they're trying to create over there, as opposed to neoliberalism and, neocons trying to institute sanctions and shit like that, or covert means trying to overthrow governments, and just that whole foreign intervention.
Well, yeah, and also one of the things that when people think rubber bullets, they think like, you hit it, they hit you and it bounces off. Mm-hmm. But it's rubber-coated bullets. There's metal on the inside of those.
Yeah.
The rubber's so that they're supposed to shoot it at the ground, then it bounces. And that's supposed to take a lot of the velocity off it, so you're not damaging people. But the cops actually have, I forget the guy's name, but there was Scott something that was in Oakland, and he got hit by tear gas, so they shot him in the head with a tear gas thing.
Yeah, those things will tear people up too. Remember at Standing Rock, that woman lost an arm.
Yeah, and that's the thing that the cops do is they don't shoot the rubber bullets into the ground. They shoot them at people, and they shoot tear gas at people. Tear gas is supposed to be shot into the area,
right.
And it's actually, you want to get further into that, it's actually something that's banned by the Geneva Convention in war.
Mm-hmm. But governments can use it against their own people. That's fine.
But so, the police officers take these things that are, claimed to be non-lethal weapons. Yeah. Well, they had to change the name to less than lethal because people are calling them out so much on the actual people being killed.
People are dying from it, yeah.
But they use them in a way that makes them, at the very least, very dangerous, if not lethal.
Well, it's like Ahed Tamimi's cousin in Palestine. I don't know if you've ever seen the picture where like a whole half of his head is gone from a rubber bullet went in and really messed him up. And we've got our police going and training with their police force, the IDF, and so they're bringing these same tactics home and using it on unarmed peaceful protesters, whether it be Standing Rock and full on like taping the things before they throw them so that they explode, and blew off that woman's arm. And just there's numerous cases, but here is something I do want to show you guys if you're ever at a protest, take it from these Hong Kongers. They, oh, there's more stories than I thought. Oh, man. Is it not in here?
There is that story about the cop who ate a part of his sandwich and then forgot somehow, and then blamed people at McDonald's for taking a bite out of his sandwich.
Oh, I took a bite out of my sandwich because they hate me because I'm a cab.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no. I'm just an idiot, and I took a bite and forgot. Here
Like,
it is.
first of all, how do you forget, and then how do you remember that? Like, you fucking later, you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I took a bite out of it.
So if you're at a protest and some tear gas gets thrown your way, boom.
Nice.
And what are they pouring on it? Water? Yeah, there's like water maybe. Take it out. Bag it up. What's up? Whose streets? Our streets.
Nice.
Yeah. Pretty effective, dude. And boom. So that was a tip from the Hong Kong protest. They've been going strong, man. Hopefully they can keep it up like the Yellow Vests have.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people going with it outside of the Palestinians, but I've always been in favor of slings. So I want to get back to that, old style, the ancient sling thing, like fucking David and Goliath. So,
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's going to catch on again soon.
So Miguel watching says, what about the kid that was about to be deported and is an American citizen? So yeah, that brings up a point that you've brought up before, that you've got to realize, like, these patriots need to realize how all of these laws that are being passed in the name of safety and whatnot, they're all going to be
militarized borders that all these libertarian small government guys are in favor of, all that shit eventually makes its way into the domestic police departments.
It's just like when Obama passed that bullshit where now there's, just like on the border checkpoints, there's those checkpoints within our borders. They can go with so many miles within the border. Border Patrol and Homeland
75% of the United States is covered by the 100-mile radius around the United States.
And so, like, I've been driving down, I believe it was El Paso area, coming from Houston, and there was one of those set up. And it was just on a U.S. highway, not a border. And they asked everybody, papers, please, like it's fucking Nazi Germany. And I think to Miguel's point is that actual American citizens, children are being, cases of mistaken identity or whatever, are being caught up in these sweeping raids.
There's two really prominent things about that story, and one of them is that, this was an American citizen who was of Latino descent, so, he's under suspicion, based solely on that. And the other thing is, even though he's a citizen, the conditions were so bad that he almost willingly self-deported. He almost agreed to be deported because it was so bad just to get out. Yeah.
Right. Fuck. Imagine. Yeah, just send me to some country I've fucking never been to before. Just get me out of here.
Which is often the case with undocumented immigrants. They were either born here or brought here so young that they're going to a country they've never consciously existed in.
Right.
They never actually lived there.
Or they'll be brought here when they're 3 with their parents.
But, there's somebody who has every legal reason or every legal justification to be here. He is an actual citizen.
Yeah.
And he was willing to allow himself to be deported because the conditions were so bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they got him drinking fucking toilet water and shit, so no blankets. No.
And that creeping police state that is being created by these border controls. Right now, they're doing facial recognition checks in driver's license base to search, ostensibly to search, or at this point, to search for undocumented immigrants. I guarantee you that's not going to stop with undocumented immigrants. No. There's going to be facial recognition search through the database of driver's licenses for anything that they might want to catch somebody for.
Yeah.
So give it a couple of years and... that's going to be your police state that you're pushing so hard.
Exactly.
So while you're out there running around telling people you're an anarchist, when you're pushing, first of all, you're supporting a political candidate, then you're supporting militarized borders, and you're supporting abuse by the largest and fastest growing police agency of the police state. And,
right.
And somehow can keep a straight face while telling people that you're an anarchist.
Another comment here. Rio, I love your groups. I'm from Johnstown, PA, and I've seen some trouble things police have done in my hometown when I moved to Vegas. I realize this is a nationwide problem. I love that you're exposing these things. Thank you. Thank you, Rio. Thanks for tuning in. We encourage you guys to share this out, help us reach more people. Also, if you like what we do, I mean, we put in countless hours researching, fact-checking, reading headlines, just constructing the shows, all this equipment we came out of pocket for. So if you like what we do and want to help us increase our production value, you can head over to patreon.com, patreon.com/ACAB radio, and become a patron for as little as $1 an episode or $1 a month or whatever you can, just to say, hey, I like what you're doing. I want you to be able to keep doing this. That would be great. We'd appreciate it. We do want to increase the production value of this show, and there are some software we could use. I want to get a green screen so we can get fancy with it. Just little things like that would really, we'd love the support and could really use it. So head on over there if you can, or just share it out. Help us build the audience that way. If you know some people that are pro police accountability that might like this show, you can send them an episode in Messenger or tag them in the comments, whatever. Help us grow, help us continue to do this. There is an event here locally if anybody's watching from Vegas or Henderson or somewhere nearby and want to participate. This is a flyer for it. I don't know if you can see, but it's police use of force. There is an event link on our page. It's basically an event to counter an event that Metro did last year, where they basically threw themselves a party at the Mob Museum to pat themselves on the back. And the irony is not lost on us that it was held at the Mob Museum when it's the Blue Mafia out here.
They made a big circle and patted each other on the back.
Pretty much, it was a circle jerk. Nobody from the public showed up. And the people that were going wanted to just go to the Mob Museum, didn't even want to see the Mob Museum because there were so many cops everywhere.
Because there was too many mobsters in there.
Right. So we were there counter-protesting, but now we're holding our own event. And it's because Metro used that, PR ploy, that event, to pat themselves on the back and say that they are a model of reform for the police use of force. Yeah. So they're trying to say that...
Well, they think if they say it enough, it'll be true.
Right. Well, a lie, if you repeat it enough times, becomes true. Yeah. So, I don't know, for those of you that might not know, it got so bad out here. What was it, 2012 or 2013?
There was a 3-year period where they were averaging, I think it was 29 killings a year.
Yeah. It's crazy. They were just shooting people left and right.
Yeah, and it was after that was when the FBI stepped in. That was, if you watch the movie What Happened in Vegas, that's actually 4. There's 4 cases. One of them is the recent one, but the 3 main cases and the 3 original cases are all from that period.
Yeah, so it got so bad that the feds had to step in to try to rein them in a little bit. So they did make some changes, but not near what was recommended. They did, now, after they shoot somebody, they release the body cam footage, some of it, highly edited, within 72 hours. Usually, sometimes they don't stick to that, but which is good, right? And then they can say, oh, we're so transparent, but really they're not, because they won't even allow us to go to press conferences. They won't allow anybody, any real media to ask any real questions. So basically they tried to say, look, we're doing so great. We made all these changes, and they didn't make it near what needs to be done. The Citizen Review Board out here has no teeth. There is no transparency. They don't release full videos. They release highly edited videos. They don't allow us into press conferences. There's just so much that could be done to improve the department if they really wanted to. I mean, it's rotten from the top down. So we're doing this counter event where we're encouraging the community to come out and give testimony to what's really going on with the police. So if you've got a story of police brutality, you can go to the event link. There's a link within the event link to fill out a form, and you can come and testify and tell your story. Every single elected official for the state of Nevada has been contacted, and we're going to call out any politicians that don't respond or that don't come. One has said that they will be attending already, so there will be elected officials there. You can voice your concerns. You're all constituents. And yeah, we're trying to tell the real story, not this fabricated fairy tale that Metro is trying to paint, that it's all honky-dory out here in Vegas and that they're not still killing 20-something people a year. I mean, last year it was almost 30 officer-involved shootings. We were ranked 6th in the nation for officer-involved shootings, and that's against all large, major cities in the nation. So it is bad out here. It's not like they're trying to say. So I've seen some of the speakers and heard some of their stories already, and it's just some very powerful stories, moving stories. I encourage the community to come out and support this event. Invite friends on Facebook through the event. Whatever you got to do, get people out there.
And then roughly a week before that, on August 10th, is going to be Chalk the Police State Day, which we would highly encourage to be a national thing.
Right. That'd be cool. It's definitely necessary.
And September 21st, we're storming Area 51. So
yeah, we're officially...
Put that on your calendar.
We're officially larger than the standing army here in the States, so pretty cool. Brian Wilcox, why can't you guys go to press conference? What is their excuse?
We'll ask them questions they don't want to answer is the reason. Their excuse is that they get to decide who is or isn't media.
Yeah, so there's this is an open case. We actually got forcibly removed from the press conference and charged, arrested and charged. So the case is still ongoing. We do have representation. So there are certain things we can't talk about, but we will tell you that, first of all, it's, of course, unconstitutional. The First Amendment, freedom of the press, is not to tell us what our rights are. It's to tell the government what they can't do. They can't infringe on press freedoms. They can't say, you're press. Fox, you're press. CNN, you're not press,
And there's a reason they shouldn't be allowed to do that, because they were doing that, which is why they put that in the Constitution and why they did it the first one.
Exactly, because it's the most important. So they basically, the way Metro runs their press conferences when they shoot and kill somebody out here is it's invite only. So for a year, I've been trying to get on this special invitation list, sent emails, made phone calls, went there in person on a day that they were having the press conference, and they lied to me and said, no, we're not holding the press conference today. I left. By the time I got home, I saw that they had held the press conference.
Well, they try to have it both ways because they bill it as a public press conference, but then they keep it quiet and make sure the actual public doesn't know about it. They only tell certain people.
So I had found out from another local journalist when it was going to be. So we headed over there with our press credentials, and I went into the room and I sat down, and then here comes the public information officer, and he said, oh, okay, did everybody get my email? And I said, yeah, I've been trying to get on the email list so I can find out when these things are going on. He said, oh, you can't be here. I'm like, what? No, you can't be here. You're not press. I said, what do you mean I'm not press? Like, I write for Nevada Cop Block. Just because you don't like the way we cover things doesn't make us not press. He's like, oh, you made that press pass at home, and just because you make your own press pass doesn't make you press. Well, everybody there had, their own press passes. Metro doesn't issue press passes. Review Journal was there. They make their own press passes. Fox was there. They make their own press passes. That's what organizations do. They make their own press passes because the government cannot issue press passes. I think like when you go to like Congress and the White House and stuff like that, like they'll give press passes, but you know what I mean? The government cannot tell you are not press. You're a part of the media. Media is something that you engage in. As soon as it's an activity, it's not a profession. So as soon as you have a camera and you're filming, you're engaging in your press freedoms. You are, documenting an event. If you turn around and write about it, whether it's on a blog or social media post or whatever, that's a form of media. That is, you're protected by press freedoms for doing that, which is why the government can't say, oh, you can't say that, you can't do this and that. So yeah, so their excuse is that we're not press. But
well, and my hearing is August 13th, and it's a public hearing, and the courts have actually been pretty consistent about if they say it's a public hearing, everybody can come. So anybody that wants to come, you're welcome to come.
Yeah, open public meeting, Brian, if you want to come to the court date. I think that's about it. Our next food share, if you're interested in getting involved or want to donate, head over to Water and Solidarity or Food Not Bombs Las Vegas Facebook pages. You can send a message and get in contact with us. I'm going to be out of town for a week, so we're going to get back going, I believe, August 18th. Let me check real quick. August 19th. It's a Monday. We're going to be doing a food share at the Care Complex. So, yeah, come on down. We could use an extra pair of hands, or if you got something you'd like to donate and help out the cause. Thousands of people go unsheltered here in the valley, so the resources aren't there. We need all the help we can get. It's hot as hell out there. If you got a freezer that you want to donate, we could use it to keep bottled water ice cold when we go out and hand out waters. Or if you're a business that wants to get involved, we can, get a tax ID number for you so you can write it off. If we could always use an extra pair of hands, a couple bucks, whatever you can do, we'd appreciate it. As far as events, I think that is it. Let me just double check. I believe that is it. Yeah. That's all I got. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Are we going to have a show next week? Is it Tuesday? No, I leave Monday.
Yeah, if you're out of town, it's probably not going to.
So, not next week. We'll see you in 2 weeks. So, thank you all for tuning in. Share this out if you can. Give it a like. Help us break through these algorithms. We've been experiencing our own censorship, whether it be through shadow banning and not allowing us to tag things or post into groups, that sort of thing. Luckily, we haven't been unpublished like Matt has, and Police the Police and Jason Bass.
Somebody called me the other day and they didn't say anything, and I can't say for sure that it was Zuckerberg, but
I know it was you.
I'm not putting.
Thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you in 2 weeks. Peace.